They were told the life expectancy of a machine gunner was just 7 seconds after firing the first shot. Yet even with that in mind, M60 crews in Vietnam unleashed pure destruction on the enemy, making themselves prime targets in the process. Today we're going to look at the terrifying job these gunners had, and the devastating weapon they relied on to survive. Let's begin. After World War II, the U.S. military realized it needed a new machine gun after seeing the effectiveness of German general-purpose machine guns like the MG42 and MG34. The United States wanted to create its own version. That's how the M60 was born. In the specific conditions of the Vietnam War, the M60 was needed to deliver more firepower than a standard rifle. The dense jungles and unpredictable enemy tactics demanded a weapon that could keep the enemy pinned down, support assaults, and break off enemy attacks. The M60 compensated for the standard-issue M16's 5.56 rounds, which lacked the punch of the 7.62 rounds that could cut through dense foliage and obstacles while still hitting hard. The M60, chambered in the powerful 7.62 by 51mm NATO round, did exactly that, becoming an essential part of every squad. One of its primary roles was to provide suppressive fire, keeping enemy forces pinned down while the rest of the squad maneuvered or retreated. Gunners were typically positioned on the flanks of a patrol, or at the front during an ambush, where its field of fire could cover the widest area. They also had to frequently change positions because they were magnets for enemy fire and rocket-propelled grenades. Once they started firing, the whole battlefield would focus on the general direction of the machine gunner, so he had to relocate after firing some rounds. But the power of the M60 came with a cost. Weighing around 23 pounds, it earned the nickname the Pig from the soldiers who had to carry it in the heat and humidity of Vietnam. And with a rate of fire between 500 and 650 rounds per minute, a 100-round belt could be emptied in about 11 seconds. The weight of the weapon was nothing compared to the weight of the ammunition needed to keep it fed. How much ammo a gun team carried depended on the mission. If it was a quick surprise night attack, they didn't need more than 3 or 4 100-round belts for initial contact. But on larger operations, they needed to carry as much ammo as they physically could. The gunner usually carried around 200 rounds. The assistant gunner followed with an extra barrel and a couple of 100-round belts, and the ammo bearer, often called the mule, carried boxes of ammo that were far from light. Often the whole team contributed to feeding the pig, with everyone carrying a 100-round belt around their neck along with all their other heavy gear. Each belt weighed around 6 pounds, and the total load for an M60 crew was at least 1,200 rounds. But in practice it was between 2,000 and 4,000 rounds shared among the team. The more, the better. Every 5th round was a tracer, which helped the gunners see where they were hitting, and it also allowed helicopter crews to estimate the position of friendly units during nighttime firefights. United States forces had red tracers, while the Viet Cong typically used green ones. Although soldiers often complained about the weight, no one complained when they had extra ammo for their machine gun during an ambush or firefight. But even with all that ammo, fierce engagements could burn through supplies quickly, and running out of ammunition in the middle of a firefight was every gunner's worst nightmare. Yet despite its weight, the M60 gave soldiers the ability to lay down a massive amount of suppressive fire in a short time, often the crucial difference between life and death. Although understandably terrified of the weapon, the Viet Cong and North Vietnamese army quickly learned that taking out the M60 gunner early was critical to gaining the upper hand in any engagement. In an ambush, the first shots were often aimed at the gunner, knowing that if they could silence the M60, the squad's ability to return effective fire would be drastically reduced. Snipers were also trained to target machine gunners, leading to significantly higher casualties among them and their crews, and making their job drastically more mentally demanding. Knowing this, on patrols, machine gun teams were organized to respond quickly and lay down suppressive fire in case of an ambush. A typical team consisted of the gunner, 2 riflemen carrying extra ammo, and a non-commissioned officer to take charge and deploy them effectively. Officially, someone was supposed to carry a tripod for setting up the gun, but in practice the tripod was heavy and slowed them down, so most units didn't bother taking it into the field. The machine gun was meant to be portable, and the focus was always on staying mobile and ready to fire at a moment's notice. In units with little or no combat experience, soldiers would often carry their ammo in belts slung across their bodies, Pancho Villa style, crisscrossing their shoulders. This might have looked cool, but it was far from practical. These loose belts were prone to getting tangled, bent, or catching dirt, twigs, or leaves, which could easily jam the weapon in the middle of a firefight. Inexperienced units would sometimes even load only a short belt of ammo into the M60 itself, leaving them scrambling to reload when they needed sustained fire the most. However, experienced teams knew the importance of proper ammo handling, ensuring every belt was clean, properly linked, and ready to be fed into the gun. Some gunners used modified cloth bags meant to hold M18 Claymore mines to carry 200 to 300 rounds of linked ammo, keeping the gun ready to fire in case of a surprise attack. Aside from infantry on patrols, M60s would usually link 2 or 3 100-round belts together, or even load up a 750-round belt from a metal can originally meant for miniguns to give them long sustained bursts of fire. They were also crucial on helicopters, either gunships or transport hues. The gun wasn't without its flaws, though. The M60 had a tendency to overheat during sustained firing and needed regular barrel changes to keep running smoothly, although less frequently than some other machine guns. Jamming was another issue, especially in the harsh jungle conditions where mud, dirt, and rain could easily get into the gun's mechanism. The gunner had to regularly and meticulously clean, oil, and check their weapon, and try to protect it from dirt as much as possible. However, after days in the field, this became difficult to maintain. One of its flaws was running away, which meant the gun would keep firing uncontrollably after the trigger was released. The gunner had to literally wrestle the machine gun and try not to cause friendly fire, while the assistant yanked on the belt to stop it from feeding. It was a frightening situation that could happen in battle, risking not only wasting precious ammo, but also causing damage to the gun or hitting friendly units in the chaos of combat. Reloading was a simple and fast process, but required precision and training. The gunner would flip open the top cover, lay a fresh belt, snap the cover back down, and it was ready to fire again. After a couple hundred rounds, the barrel had to be changed, and the assistant typically did this using a glove to handle the glowing red-hot barrel and replace it with a cooler one. This was designed to be a quick process, but required training and a cool head in the heat of battle. Still, despite its flaws, when used by a trained team, the M60 could shift the tide of battle in a matter of seconds. The patrol relied on their machine gunners, knowing they were their best protection in case of an ambush. Operators got to know their weapon intimately, eliminating every flaw even under intense pressure. They regularly practiced disassembling and assembling the machine gun, even with blindfolds on to simulate darkness, and even held competitions to see who could do it faster. The M60 from Vietnam received numerous upgrades over the years, with improved versions like the M60E3 and M60E4 addressing many of its flaws. Even though it was developed decades ago, the M60 and its modern versions are still in service today, remembered not just by those who used it, but also by the enemy who found themselves on the receiving end.
Behind every number is a story, and behind every story, a life that truly matters. Be a voice for the voiceless, subscribe, share, and help keep the light of truth alive. With Legentara.